back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us now, our friend Congressman Mark Pocan, a Democrat, coming to us live from Wisconsin, I believe. He's in the 2nd District, serving the House Appropriations Committee, co-founder and co-chair of the Labor Caucus, and his podcast with Liberty and Justice for Some. Congressman, nice to see you, my friend. A lot going on, even heading into the holidays. It doesn't end, doesn't stop.
No, with Donald Trump and the Republicans, never a dull moment. But at least we're not in Washington last week where I thought we were going to have to censure every member of Congress in order to get out of there. It was getting close to that. So
really
it's
interesting.
An ugly week.
All right, so can you help us make any sense of what Marjorie Taylor Greene did by suddenly resigning and not serving out her term, like leaving rather abruptly?
Well, she stayed long enough by 2 days to get vested, her 5 years in. So, at least she can read a clock or a calendar and she knows how to do that. But yeah, I think a lot of people are giving her more credit. If you think of everything that she said about so many different people, she's had a pretty awful career. And just because, recently she at least was good on a couple of things, and by couple, I may be saying one, maybe two, that's not enough to reform a career, but it does say something about, and there's been a lot of articles in the last few days about this, Republicans feel like they're not governing. I mean, Donald Trump is making all the decisions. Mike Johnson is letting them be the lead. We're now a subservient branch of government. So I think, for Marjorie, it kind of, if you fight all that way to get to the majority to govern and you can't even govern, it's got to be kind of depressing for Republicans in Congress.
Well, I'm sure she'll be busy doing other things. Like I was never on the train like, oh, she saw the light and now she's a great person. In fact, that was on MSNBC. And you're like, so isn't this heartening what Marjorie Taylor Greene? I'm like, are you out of your mind? She's still the same vile bigot that she always was. She's made a choice or a calculation to move from MAGA populism to more populism, more of a straight-laced populism, because she saw the election results. And to me, that's all it was. It was a cold calculation thing. And I'm not going to forgive her for making life, especially look at all the garbage she gave Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar didn't quit Congress because, but, Queen of the Karens there, Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to see the manager. Manager won't talk to her and she just quits. She's never coming back to the restaurant. That's it. Rashida didn't quit. AOC hasn't quit. They're tough. Our Democratic women are tough.
And Marjorie, I mean, she has this reputation and she's tried to, I think, reform it to stand out. But at the end of the day, she said some of the most awful things about virtually every constituency within the Democratic Party. And, much like anyone else who has a clock without any batteries in their house, it is right twice a day. It's just not intentionally right. So I think that's how we have to look at her and her term in Congress. But it is telling to see Don Bacon from Omaha and some others saying, I thought about leaving when the president did this or that, because I do feel like the Republicans feel so marginalized and Donald Trump is so over-empowered that they're starting to hate their existence. So all I know is everything points well to next November, but for right now, we got to suffer through a lot, and a lot of people are going to be hurt along the way.
There was some talk by a certain Democrat, and even I think Kevin McCarthy may have said this on Fox News, that he heard rumblings there'll be more Republican resignations, and they may or may not resign, or they may just choose not to run again. Do you expect that from the House?
I think it's possible. I mean, I've been in local, state, and federal government, at least state and federal, where there's majorities and not majority. And if you've done all the work to get to the majority and you're ready to govern and you have your own agenda plus the committees you're on, and none of those things actually come to the floor because Donald Trump is calling every shot and Mike Johnson is his lapdog, literally doesn't stand up to him. I understand why you might say this job isn't worth it. I'm away from my family 3 out of 4 weeks a month. I'm work with these village idiots, and like, is this really what I want to do? So for some folks, there are Republicans that we just disagree ideologically are good people. They've got to be looking at this and saying, is really this the best job that I can do? And I think there is potential for more.
Politico had an article about Speaker Johnson losing control of the House. And he means the Republicans, not the Democrats. He has no control over. What do you think? Do you think it's really, I'm not going to be like this mutiny, but do you think he has lost control? Has Trump lost control of the House? Like, what's your take? We saw a stunning vote with the Epstein vote last week.
Well, Mike Johnson's spine is made out of noodle, right? It's very weak. So the fact that he never stands up and tries to initiate something from the House it's always the White House is initiating it, the Senate, the adults fix things, and we're kind of the body that just doesn't meet. And when we do, we don't do much. And, I think he could be in trouble with some of his members because if they see Trump not doing so well, Trump's tariff taxes are really hurting, the healthcare issue is really hurting. And if they feel that their political future may be in jeopardy, you might start seeing some of them go, what's that in my back? What's that in the back of my chair? I'm feeling something. Oh, wait,
Right.
what is that? It's their spine. And, Mike Johnson just doesn't have one, doesn't show he wants to have one. So, there could be some real risks for him as Republicans move forward.
Well, I hope that we regain the House so we don't have to, or he can be in the minority leader or whatever he
Much
wants to
better.
be. After
Yeah,
that, I'm telling you, Congressman Mark Pocan. Another, and I'm not sure if this reporting is 100% accurate or not, but if it's true, it shows Trump's control over the GOP again weakening. There was reports he was going to announce an ACA subsidy deal yesterday, some kind of proposal to extend the subsidies for the Obamacare for 2 years and certain different changes he wanted in that. And then the reporting was he, quote, faced significant congressional backlash from Republican lawmakers. So he pulled the idea. And does that ring true to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's pulled off the table. I think it's just pushed back on the table for a little bit of time because he didn't talk to anyone when he did this. And,
Oh,
there are some elements that don't want to do anything for subsidies. There are some that want to do this right now and fix it faster. And, others just want to be consulted. If your committee area of expertise is this area and you're being bypassed yet again, some of those folks might want to have at least some say and some input. So I think it's more that he didn't do the due diligence he needed to do. It's not dead, but it's certainly, pushed off until others get a chance to speak about it.
is there, we don't know the details. I don't know if you're privy to any of the details, but
No.
is there, so we don't even know, is this something Democrats could vote for?
No, exactly. I mean, and who knows? Donald Trump, right? He's going to send everyone a $2,000 check. They walk it back 10 minutes later, right? This could be also not what it actually says on paper. This could be what Donald Trump thinks it says on paper. So I've learned with the Trump administration not to trust too much until it gets far enough into the public domain that we can actually have a conversation.
I had Tom Hartman on my show, ironically enough. I know you go on his show and I go on his show, but once a month he comes on and he was concerned that in this there would be something about voiding the mandated coverage for pre-existing conditions. I'm like, they better not do that. And I haven't seen any rumors of that, but I guess there could be rumors of it. It's always a concern.
That would be a third rail. If they do that, I think that they would get in a lot of trouble because most people, if you're younger and we didn't have healthcare before the Affordable Care Act, going back to what 10, 12, when it was actually implemented, who would believe that being a woman was a pre-existing condition, that if you
Right.
actually were sick, you couldn't get health insurance? That's called profit insurance, not health insurance, right? So I think it would be pretty hard to this many years later do that. But, then again, I mean, Donald Trump doesn't really understand policy. He doesn't exactly put a bunch of intellectuals in his administration. For all I know, it's going to require brain worms or something. If Secretary Kennedy was involved, who knows? But I'll believe it when I see it. Until then, it could just be one more thing that Donald Trump says on any given day.
Do we even know what this guy does on a daily basis, Trump? I mean, we see a little, they prop him up with whatever, a couple hours, we see him, and he's just gone. And I don't even know if it's him posting anymore because there were certain things they asked him about and he didn't seem to know about it. And certain things are consistent with his vision or his anger, but I'm not even sure what he does. I'm not being light about it. I'm like, I honestly don't.
I think he watches a lot of TV, and I do think he follows a lot of social media because late at night generally is when Truth Social is most active, right? So he's
Right.
watched stuff, and it's gotten to the point that they told him no more burgers or whatever, and then he just kind of puts it all out there. So, I think that's where you see the real Donald Trump is when he's actually saying things. And right now, for example, going after the 6 Democrats who did the video about following military orders, it's exactly what's in the military, law that's out there. All they did is repeat that. There's nothing wrong with it, and yet now everyone's trying to make a big deal and go after the 6 who did it, specifically Mark Kelly, because I think they think he's the strongest and maybe the most well known of the group. But that's Donald Trump, right? Punitive, petty, pathetic. The 3 Ps, and so I think that is when we see that you really see Donald Trump.
And I think it's their way of trying to find an issue that'll rile the base up. and get away from Epstein and get away from the economy. The numbers in the economy are horrible. Even
Yeah.
Republicans in CBS poll that came out Sunday showed only about 70% of Republicans think Trump is effectively addressing inflation. I mean, that's like heresy in the GOP to say Trump's not doing well on an issue, but they couldn't lie anymore. Like, he's not doing well on inflation. He's not doing well in the economy. So that's a real issue. But to your pettiness, look at Donald Trump. They prosecuted Democratic New York sitting AG, Tish James. He prosecuted sitting member of Congress, LaMonica McIver. They indicted Katiba Ghazali, who's running for Congress, who's a Democrat. They want to prosecute Adam Schiff. And you've got these Democrats. It's open season on Democrats. And it's always using the apparatus and power of government to silence people who you say things that they don't like, or you dare to try to hold them accountable. This is very dangerous. We've never seen this in our lifetime. I'm not sure in the past, but we've never seen this.
Well, they see the legal system as a way to spin, to put out a message, right?
Right.
We see it as a way to stop him, which quite honestly, it does most of the time. When there's a lawsuit against him, we have a super high rate of positive adjudication. So, it's just the way he looks at it. It's about, getting him. And for him, I think, what I always try to remember is he'll say, almost from 180 degrees from each other, 5 different things about any given issue. And people hear what they want to hear. Right. And that's intentional to put that out there. So that way the base at least feels comfortable. They heard something they wanted to hear, even though he had 4 other positions. But it's done him well, right? He's been largely successful on not being truthful, but at least saying something that you can hold dear moving forward. But I think that's starting to go away. Like I saw, Nancy Mace, who's probably the most ridiculous member of Congress. I don't know if there could be a direct competitor for that spot. She recently put how she had breakfast and breakfast costs are way down, and she listed it. And she was ratioed on X, which is full of a bunch of MAGA heads. Like, right. You wouldn't believe, because everyone knows they're paying more for everything grocery-wise, healthcare, housing, durable goods, energy. Like, there is definitely, between the tariffs and and getting rid of the Inflation Reduction Act and other things in the big ugly law, people are being dramatically affected when it comes to their pocketbook. So I do think that part is understood by people. I just think some people, there's still, if they have a bit of maybe a racist tendency, they want to still believe in him, but that's going to run out, I think, sooner than later.
I love it was laughable. Either it was Scott Bessent or I think it was him. This Biden inflation, we're still coming to terms with Biden. Who was that guy? Like, are you kidding me? We can't, after what we've been through with Trump with 11 months, we don't even remember. And you guys you have full Congress for 11 months, House, Senate, and the White House. You could pass anything you wanted to address inflation, and you did nothing. You've made it worse with the tariffs.
Yeah, Scott Bessent is probably the sorriest of the secretaries, because in a previous life, he was a normal human being, a rich dude who didn't care about poor people and others, but he totally sold out to the Trump administration. I mean, this is a guy who, as a gay man, I can say he had this mansion that was called the Pink Mansion in, I think it was South Carolina, it might have been North Carolina. He sold it for 20-some million. Most of MAGA would hate them if they knew his background. And he should have enough self-esteem that he's empowering a guy who has hired people like Stephen Miller and others that are about as close as you can get to modern day monsters that would do almost anything to hurt his very family. But because he's got money and prestige, he'll be okay. But that's not the way it works. Like, we all have to have each other's backs. We have to remember in World War II, when Reverend Niemöller, his famous speech about they came, I'm going to probably get it all wrong now because I'm doing it.
I know. Famous.
But, it's from tradesmen to Jews to others. And there was no one left by the time it came to him. And we need to remember that we got to care about immigration, even if we don't have someone who's a direct immigrant right now in our lives. And we got to care about women's rights to choose, even if we're not a woman. And we've got to care about the LGBTQ plus community, even if we're not gay. There's so many things we have to have each other's backs on. And I think our movement gets it. I think, the No Kings rallies really showed that. But theirs is a selfish sort of status in how they do things.
Yeah, I've always said their selfishness will lead to cruelty. That's where the cruelty comes from. When you don't care about others to the point where they're dehumanized. So you can do anything, any vicious, mean thing. How is the economy in Wisconsin where you are? Because we see data, consumer sentiment numbers again down today, where you're seeing great concerns. But in the real world, what are you seeing in Wisconsin's second district?
Yeah, I mean, we're paying too much for groceries. We're paying too much for housing, but to be honest, that's been going on for a while.
Right.
We're paying too much for durable goods, a lot of things because of tariffs from furniture and other things that come from overseas. Milk bottles from Canada are affecting my farmers, in my district.
Wow.
Utility prices are going up because of the changes they did. I just talked to a union leader today who told me they did really well for their members this year. They had a lot of work hours, but next year he's afraid it's going to drop significantly because of the changes they did in the big ugly law by getting rid of some of those projects that we did in the last administration. So if you take away the projects that make our communities better, that also takes away the jobs. And that means those people don't have spending power. And then you add that on top of this increased costs and everything, and you could have a real, recession that is self-created by the
Yeah.
Trump administration. That's the thing. Usually you see something and there's global patterns and we're going to be part of it because the whole world is feeling it. This is largely caused by Donald Trump and either the tariffs or the big ugly law. So they could easily reverse these things. Just if they don't before it's too late, that will be the real problem.
Has anything changed with farmers? I mean, the soybean farmers were really struggling. Then Trump announces China's going to buy it at the levels they did last year, but it's just for prorated this part of the year. But I'm not sure if it's really trickled. Have you heard anything? Are farmers doing any better?
Well, if for Wisconsin, it was $1 billion of business we lost for soybean farmers. Not a single order came into China. Now, I don't know since what he did, but I do know that also they propped up Argentina, and now Argentina dropped their tariffs, and now they're selling to China. And now, if we have to try to match prices from South American countries for soybeans, that could have a negative effect on the farmers. So I think it's kind of TBD, to be determined. But clearly, when that first happened, I had someone that told me their neighbor, for the first time since the first Trump administration, took down their Trump flag. And guess what? They happen to be a soybean farmer. They finally directly were affected by it, and that was enough to finally make them care.
That's something we were trying to discuss on the show just yesterday. It organically came up. The idea of have you spoken? And I said we're going to dedicate as a segment one day this week or next week on the people who know MAGA people now who
Mhm.
have buyer's remorse. And so you had a great example where it affected someone. We had a listener last night who listens just because he likes to get angry. He's MAGA. But
Mhm.
he at the same time he said, I'm in this grocery store and steak is like 25 or $28. This is ridiculous. You go, well, you can't blame Democrats for that. That's Trump. I mean, what can I
Yeah.
tell you? Now, it's not a deal breaker yet for him, but maybe at some point it becomes a deal breaker for the average Republican.
Well, and he lowered tariffs on banana, coffee, and something else. But you can't live on bananas and coffee, right? We buy
You
lots
can
of other
try, but it's not
groceries.
going to work, right?
So, in Thanksgiving alone, there's a huge spike from a year ago in cost for families. So I think with the holidays coming up and people seeing they're paying more, and, there's just so many signs that people are getting that it's Donald Trump who's caused this. And the polling is absolutely showing that.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. By the way, I just want to get your reaction. Yesterday, a federal judge dismissed the case against James Comey, and Tish James was
Yeah.
without prejudice. But if Democrats get control of the House, are you going to make investigating this DOJ one of the top priorities?
Oh, I mean, we can do everything that a government should do. It shouldn't matter which party's in charge. You should have checks and balances.
Right.
Again, Mike Johnson won't do that, but we can absolutely not just through committees, that do direct oversight, like oversight and government reform, but through committees like appropriations I serve on. We have the same ability to bring people in, especially on money. One of the subcommittees I'm on, Russ Vogt is, OMB. We have oversight over. I would love
Ah.
to bring him in. We had him in once and we made him look like a fool, but this time we would actually hold him accountable for what he's doing and stealing funds that's against the law. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do that would have a real impact and will absolutely, if not stop them in their tracks in many areas, certainly as a goalie, they can't pass anything legislatively. So it gives us multiple protection fronts should we get the majority.
I hope so. And last thing I want to touch on, I know you had shared online Senator Van Hollen's words, but a U.S. citizen, Palestinian-American Mohammed Ibrahim, he's 16. He was 15. He was arrested by the Israeli police, pulled from his bed. They said he threw rocks at soldiers. It's more administrative detention. He just sits in there. Now his family's really worried for him. They want an independent doctor to assess his condition. And as of now, the Israeli military is not allowing that to happen. Can Congress help out? I mean, he's a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, we should. And I know that we are doing a letter and others are doing letters right now around it. But more importantly, this is something that Betty McCollum actually has legislation to go after this, because this has gone on for a long time. Israel has a tendency to arrest kids, especially for things like throwing rocks at walls, not even people. And next thing you know, they're put into the system. And that's why you saw so many prisoners exchanged when they had the release of the hostages, because many of those prisoners were people who threw rocks and did that. But if you're actually going to have what I think people are stating they want, a two-state solution in the Middle East. You want peace between Israel and Palestine. You're going to have to change the laws. It's, part of it's going to have to happen on the Palestinian side. Part of it's going to be on the Israeli side. But arresting kids and holding them indefinitely certainly is not something that's respected by countries like ours and others with a functional legal system.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I was glad to see another letter went out, and if you guys are working on a letter, and Senator Van Hollen's video really brought attention to it. And, Kohler organically last week has brought up attention. I'd seen a little bit on my Instagram feed, and then I did a little bit more research. I'm like, this is horrible. He's been there for a while. I'm going to try to reach out to his family to see if they can get somebody on to talk about it. He spends half his time in Florida. He's a Palestinian-American guy. I mean, well, Representative, I want to thank you for spending some time, right, 2 days from Thanksgiving. I wish you and your family a very happy, fun Thanksgiving, and I look forward to chatting with you in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much. Same to you and to your listeners.